here for another round of recovery and mobility. If you don't remember, my name is Dr. Kyle Paxton with Performance Care Clinics, and look we have a friendly face today, someone we can torture with these mobility exercises. That's not me. It'll be a little bit easier for me to talk now too, so I can give you some more cues as well. But similar time frame, we're gonna work through the hip and lower body, we'll work up to the spine, work through some shoulder stuff. We're gonna do a little bit more neck stuff today as well, and then we'll loop back around to the ankle. We're gonna get going with the hip. Last time we did some kind of hip circles on steroids called hip cars. We're going to start with that again, except we're going to be in standing. So Renee, I'll have you come over here, and we're going to do our hip circles in standing. So the biggest thing is make sure you have a wall, right? I don't need balance to come into play here, but I don't want you to lean and cheat against the wall. So I always say 1 arm's length away from the wall. And what we're going to do is our big hip circle. There's going to be a couple steps just like before. We're going to come knee up. It's going to slide to the side. That back foot is going to lift all the way coming back around in line with our body. And then we reverse by kicking backwards and then knee all the way back up like so. So that's 1 rep. We're going to do 10 of them each side. Just like that. Slow and steady wins the race here. And you can see we're not moving from the torso, right? It's really easy to start to do all kinds of crazy stuff from the torso and make you feel like you're going farther. But we want this motion to really come from the hip. Just like I said in the previous video, this is one of my favorites just to get warmed up. So even if it's a lower body day or something you're training moving forward, this doesn't necessarily have to be purely mobility. It can be a warm-up as well. Good. And I said this a lot in the last video because no one listens to me, but make sure you keep breathing. It's good. Awesome. Keep working there. 10 each side. Everyone's going to be at a slightly different pace here. And just like I said in the previous video as well, if you feel like you need more reps, go ahead and do them. If you feel like this is an area where the 10 is fine, then we'll move on to the next after that. And once you're done with this one side, we will flip around and we will repeat on the other side, whether it's right or left. We're going to do the same thing. And you can see here, staying up really tall in that torso. I will say sometimes this exercise gets a little crampy in the hamstring. So if you feel that, just shake it out, kind of reset yourself. And come back up. That looks good. Breathing, slow, steady wins the race here. Nice. Good. Our goal is to do enough reps that we feel like we're doing something, right? So you should be a little warm in the hips. That's a really general hip mobility drill, right? That's something everyone should be doing, and that's what it makes you feel like you want to do afterwards. What I always like to start with that, and then we're going to get a little bit more specific. So this next drill, we're going to get into our 90-90 position on the ground, right? So come on down, Brandon. I'll have you get down there. So as a reminder, it's called 90-90 because this back knee is at 90 degrees, front knee is at 90 degrees as well, and we want that torso up nice and tall. We may expose right in here a little bit, but this exercise is going to work on a direction of hip mobility that most people do not work into, and that's hip internal rotation. This is the movement you need if you struggle getting deep in a squat, deep in a lunge, or you have any sort of hip pinching in a hinge type movement. So what we're going to be doing in this 90-90 is working on the back leg here, okay? So we are going to be trying to lift this back foot up in the air. And what I'll tell you is there's a couple levels of difficulty. So we'll start at the easiest, and the easiest is actually going to be right in putting your hands out here, both of them, kind of leaning that way. This will open up a little more space. Now lift up this back foot. As you can see, you can lift it a good amount. The second level, a little bit harder, is if you take those hands now, split this front knee, so one hand here, one hand there, and if you lift a little bit less range of motion. And then expert level, if you're trying to show off, is no hands. And we're not quite showing off today, right? So depending on what is the right fit for you, I want it to be challenging, but not hard enough that you don't feel like you can do 10 of them, okay? So whatever that is for you right now, maybe that split over that front knee seems like a good fit. And then we're going to lift and hold for 5 seconds in the air. 5, 4, 3, 2, and down. And we'll repeat that 10 times. And like I said, do more if you feel like you need it, but if you're that person who struggles to get deep into a squat, or you feel like you're always losing your balance, struggling to get into the bottom parts of a lunge, then this is usually a direction of the hip that is really tight. Another cramp disclaimer here. A lot of times, exactly, you'll feel that cramp kind of in that front outside of the hip. I'm not here to kill you, right? So if you feel like it's gonna cramp, shake it out. Maybe try a couple reps on the other side. And you can go back and always finish the other side if you need to. 10 reps each side here, 5-second lifts. Pause the video if you need to. If we're going a little too quick, that's fine. You'll feel a lot of differences left to right here. People really have a lot of asymmetries in their hips, so don't be surprised when you feel that. Totally fine, just be aware of them. You see, Ren's doing a really good job here of keeping his chest up. A lot of times, you want to feel like you're doing more, at your hip, and you're going to start to dip that chest. But keeping that chest up tall is going to make sure it's really coming from our hip. So we're finishing up these 10. That's a hard one, but one of my favorite. While we're down in this 90-90 position, we'll just kind of shake that out real quick, and we're going to do just some really easy transitions. Easier when your hands are behind you, harder if you have no hands. And we'll just go a quick 20 seconds here, nothing crazy, just to get us moving. Then we'll work into a hamstring stretch. In the last video, we gave you what I consider my favorite quad stretch. So you can still do that if you feel like you're tight in the quads. So we'll give you a really good hamstring stretch, kind of give you the other side of the coin. For this hamstring stretch, a couple different ways you can do it. I think the easiest way is if you lay on your back here on the mat. And as you've seen, a common theme is pretty much everything's dynamic movement in some sort of way. So for this one, just for the camera, I want you to straighten this out, and you're gonna hold behind your thigh here. And the sequence is important here, so we'll have our foot nice and relaxed to start, and we're going to kick up as far as we can, then you'll pull your foot towards you, then relax the foot, then the knee comes back down. So kicking up, foot pulls towards you, relax the foot, and come back down. And we're gonna go for about 30 seconds or so here. I got a timer, you guys can set your own timer as well. But we want to make sure we're kind of taking up all of that slack in the muscle. The reason we're adding the sequencing is it gets a little bit of the sciatic nerve with it as well. So we get hamstring stretch plus sciatic nerve movement, which for anyone watching this video who's had some sciatic nerve pain, it's not something we want. So it's good to warm those up and get them used to movement just like the muscles. Good, keep going. 3, 2, and good. Let's try the other side. Same thing. So a common theme with these mobility groups of exercise is it doesn't need to be a lot. I see a lot of people way overdoing warm-ups, cool-downs, mobility stuff. They feel like they need to spend an hour doing these things. A good full body mobility really only needs to take 20 minutes or so. And what I like to encourage people is find areas that are tight. If you find you struggle with hip internal rotation or the hamstring, spend more time on those. If you're really good at ankle mobility, maybe you don't need quite as much time. So you'll learn a lot about your body in these. Good, 3, 2, and awesome. Good job. Cool, how'd that feel? Pretty good? Good, all right. So we just talked about the sciatic nerve there. Obviously the sciatic nerve comes from our spine. So just like last time, I want to do a little bit of spine mobility. We're going to start with a really simple one that a lot of you guys are probably familiar with, and that's just a simple cat-cow. All right, so why don't you go hands and knees for me? And really the key with the cat-cow is making sure we're actually pushing into our true end range. People are just kind of willy-nilly with it sometimes. But what I like to say is this cow portion or the extension portion is the easier. Call that the rest portion of this range of motion. And then as we round everything, this is where we need the work. We just don't get these muscles to lengthen enough, and you'll cycle through those. But especially as you come up into that cat position, we're lengthening those muscles that so many people feel tightness in, especially in the low back here. And you can even see with Coach Renan here that he's good at rounding through here, but then it gets pretty straight through here, right? And this is really common spot to have that low back muscle tightness. Comes a lot from that hip tightness as well. So trying to continue to get it moving is really important. But the only way we're gonna make progress is if we're really trying to push into that. So keep going there. What I recommend is timing your breath up with it, right? So your exhale will always be as you round, and your inhale will be as you drop back towards the ground. Exhale as you round, inhale as you come back down. We're gonna keep going another 15 seconds. I usually like to say about a minute of work here. If you're a reps type of person, that's somewhere around 20 reps usually. But nice, slow, controlled. You can see we have the head coming with it. Head's rounding as the spine's rounding, and then the head extends as the spine extends. So again, that rounding is where we want that work to happen, so really make sure you're pushing into that. Pause the video if you feel like you need more reps, but that's good. So what we want to try to do now, since we're working in that plane of motion, let's get some rotation. Last time we did one of my favorite rotation drills, which was that kind of half kneeling rotation into a lot of different planes of motion. We're going to do a little bit more focused here to the kind of mid-back area. Everyone who's on their computers and on their phones and looking down, get really tight through there. Rotation is one of the best ways to break through it. So what I like to do is you'll get into kind of a hands and knees where you're going to sit your butt back to your heels, and then you're going to drop to one forearm, and then this hand will come behind and hold onto your neck. Yep. And what we're going to do is we're going to rotate. The reason this is the position we're getting into is by sitting your butt back to your heels, we're kind of eliminating the low back to force all the motion to come from the mid back. And you can see him already getting into that rotation, all the way open and all the way closed. This is another one that I really like to time up your breath with, right? So inhale on the way down, exhale on the way up. That middle of your spine is really connected to that rib cage. So I like to make sure they're both moving, right? When we inhale, exhale, we get that rib cage to expand and contract. We really want that movement to pair nicely with the spine rotation that we're going here. So we'll go 30 seconds or so each side. Just like all the other exercises, if you feel like you need another set, go ahead, pause the video and try it, but we'll keep going here. That's a good job, keeping that breath work. Nice. Good. Let's do two more on this side, and then we'll try the other side. You can see he's doing a good job of keeping his hand on the back of his neck. I don't need you to have too much craziness with your neck rotating and twisting. You can use the hand to really stabilize. Let's try the other side. Yep, perfect. Flip around. Awesome. Always drop into that forearm, and then we're rotating. Good. And a general rule for all of these, right? You're going to feel tight spots. You're going to feel some drills that are harder than others. They're not meant to be painful, right? So if you feel like when you really get to that end range and you're feeling pinchiness or pain, stop just short of that, right? We want to work in what we consider to be a challenging but comfortable range of motion. Good job with that breath. Breathing. Good. Keep working. So let's do two more here. Like I said, roughly 30, maybe 45 seconds each side, but it doesn't need to be a lot. job. Really cool. All right, why don't you pop up, shake that out for a second. So this last one for kind of the spine and the hip and the lower half is a great one because it kind of combines everything into one. It's called the bretzel. Not sure why it's called that. You kind of twist yourself into a pretzel, so maybe it's based off of that. But what we're going to do is we're going to get some rotation at the spine while also getting our hips to kind of open and separate. So I'll show you the starting position first. Will be on your side like so with your top leg up, okay? Why don't you mirror that position and then I'll show you what we're going to do. So on your side, and if your right leg's up, yep, it'll be up kind of at 90 degrees. So what you're going to do now is we're going to take this back or this top hand and you're going to grab your foot. And then you're going to take this bottom hand and grab that thigh. Good. And you're going to try to pull yourself apart, and we're going to add some rotation with the breathing. So you're going to inhale at the top, and you're going to exhale, and the shoulder is going to try to drop back towards the ground, and then inhale as you come back up. Exhale as it drops. Good. Inhale as it comes up. This is a pretty intense one, so we only need 5 each side here. Nice, quick, and easy. But I really like this one for kind of a high bang for your buck hip and back drill. Good. Nice. And let's try the other side, but then let's make sure they can see your back side this time, just so they can see both angles there. Good. So that side will be on top. That's good. And then reach in there. There. Yep, so now you have the other angle of kind of what it looks like from the back. And let's try a couple more here. Inhale. Exhale as that shoulder is attempting to drop. Some of you guys will be more mobile than others, right? I've seen plenty of people who can drop their back shoulder all the way to the ground. Now what we're working with here.
Overachievers.
Yeah. Honestly, guys are pretty tight through this mid-back area and the hip flexor area, which is where we're working. So this is a really common kind of sticking point where we're at. But if you feel like you're really tight in here, this is one maybe you take and you work on a more consistent basis. This can be the last one here. You can see why they call it a bretzel, the version of tying yourself up into a little mini pretzel. Good job. Cool. That one's hard, but that's a high bang for your buck one. Like I said, you get a lot of movement in a lot of different areas with that drill. All right, let's give the spine and the hips a break for a second. Let's work on some shoulders. So my shoulders are really, really tight, so I do a lot of shoulder work. So there's really endless things you can do there. But let's start just like we started the hip with some of those cars, right? So last time we did the swimmers, which is a pretty hard version of it. This is going to be a little more isolated. It'll give you a better chance to feel differences right and left, okay? So I want you to pop into a hands and knees position on the ground for me. And we're going to do one arm at a time. So we'll do our right arm, and I'm going to take you through the range of motion. So we're going to be thumb up, straight elbow the whole time. We're going to come up into flexion, and then we're going to swim open as we rotate until the back of your hand is in your back pocket, and then you're going to reverse that all the way back out. So that's one. It's the same circle as we did with the hip, just with the shoulder now, right? They're basically the same joint, ball and socket, good, and unwinding. So I always like to start with just a big movement for the joint that we're trying to work on. Get all those little stabilizing, rotating muscles, the rotator cuff here specifically, to work really hard. Get everything warmed up. We'll just do roughly 10 each side. We'll do a couple more over here. We're all bad counters. But roughly 10 to 15 if you feel like one side's tighter than the other. You can see we're doing a really good job not compensating. That's one reason why I like this position, is by having this shoulder and hand on the ground and your knees right under your hips, kind of eliminates your ability to cheat from the torso. Good. Let's do one more on this side, then we'll flip and do the other. Really good. And with all these drills, I'll say it again, new movements are hard enough. Don't make it harder by not breathing, right? Our goal is to get us moving and being more mobile. Let's try the other side. The harder we hold that breath, the more we're going to tighten up, right? So keep that rib cage and breath work going. And same thing here, swimming out to the side, rotating to get the back of your hand in that back pocket, and then unwinding slowly all the way back forward. Perfect. And keep working here. Just like the hip, you'll definitely notice a difference right to left. You know, I'll hear it both ways. Sometimes people feel like their dominant side's tighter, sometimes they feel like their dominant side's looser. Don't read too much into it. We always want to be working both sides. Just be aware of the differences so you can kind of feel how they get closer over time as you keep working. Good. Keep breathing here. Nice. Let's try just a couple more. Let's do 2 more. Nice job. Really good. Cool. Awesome. So that one, just like the hip, we'll get some blood flowing, get you moving, and then we start to get more specific with some of the deficits, okay? So for this next one, a lot of people have tightness on the front side of their shoulder. Just like people have tightness in their hamstring, we want to stretch the muscle, but we also want to stretch the nerve with it, okay? So this is one of my absolute favorite drills. If you're someone who works at a desk, those mid-back rotational drills, and this one should be very high on your radar and doing consistently. So what we'll do is you'll find a wall for this, okay? And you're going to take your hand nice and flat and put it on the wall, and you will stand directly to the side of it, all right? A lot of people already in this position with your elbow straight and your fingers pointing backwards, you'll feel tension in your forearm all the way up into your shoulder. That's the nerve being tight. We haven't even really gotten to the muscle part yet, but you will maintain that, and then you will rotate away. So we're rotating towards you until you feel a pretty strong stretch, and then we're rotating to take that pressure back off. So this is going to be pretty dynamic. Pause for a second or two in that kind of max stretch, and then come in back out of it. I want you to focus on 2 things. One is making sure that those fingers that are pointed backwards are spread nice and open. And 2, that that elbow stays straight the whole time. You can adjust the tension by how far you're turning, but the elbow is going to stay straight as you go. We're going to be doing roughly 10 reps here, common theme, usually just enough to get that mobility kind of pulled out of there. Consistency is your friend more than a crazy amount of reps is your friend. Good. This can be last one, and then we'll try this other side. Good. This one can be pretty strong for people, so you may feel even some like light tingling into your hand. If you feel that, just hand off the wall, shake it out for a second. Don't turn as much on your next reps here. So you can see we're spread really nicely at the fingers. We're keeping that elbow nice and straight, and we're working. So as you turn, we're gonna get that bicep and that pec to open up. As you come back, we're still tensioning just that nerve, even at our baseline position. But this is very similar to the setup of how we did that kind of hamstring and sciatic nerve combo. This is a really good one for the shoulder, and a really great one if you have neck tension as well. Good job. Cool. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So if that one doesn't open you up, I'm not quite sure what will. But we spend so much time on our phones, our hands are even just really tight. So just giving yourself exposure to being on the wall with your fingers spread open can be really, really powerful. Even in the weight training world, right? We're always gripping, holding dumbbells, all this type of stuff. We're holding the phone. Having some opening there can be really, really good. Okay? So let's do, since we're talking about stretching the neck and stuff, let's do that before we do one more shoulder thing. My absolute favorite, and everyone knows, their upper traps get really, really tight. We don't have to overcomplicate this one. We just have to freaking do it, right? So a seated upper trap stretch is my favorite. So here, you can come sit next to me, Brandon. So you can either sit, what do they call this now? Crisscross applesauce. Yep, sit in crisscross applesauce, or if that's not comfortable for you and you want to just sit straight out, that's cool too. But we're going to make sure we put one of our hands way the heck under your butt. We want to be able to pin that shoulder down as we start to stretch. So we can do this a couple different ways. The highest bang for your buck is going to be a rotation and flexion downwards. If that feels like it's too much of a stretch, you can do rotation and kind of like bring your ear towards your shoulder. You just won't get quite as much motion there, and we get a little less musculature stretching. So you can either rotate and kind of bring chin down, and this is away from the hand you're sitting on, or rotate and bring your ear to your shoulder. One direction may feel stronger than the other. Go with the direction that feels strong to you. Like for me, that's why I'm biased to this one. When I bring my chin down, I get a really, really, really strong stretch. So we hold for 2-3 seconds there, then we're coming back out of it. Dynamic stretch is your friend. We don't need too long of a hold. We're trying to get blood flowing, trying to improve range of motion. So we want to keep working. The whole point of sitting on that hand is so the shoulder complex doesn't roll with it, and we can get the length in that neck muscle there. Good. Nice job. Yeah, you can see he's kind of exploring here. Totally cool with it. We live way too much of our lives in a very restricted neck range of motion, right? Like maybe we're exploring this small little circle. If nothing else, you're going to be getting those joints to move. In the true end range, we're getting those muscles to really lengthen, and it's really, really good positive sensation for our neck. Let's try this other side. So really make sure you're sliding that hand way underneath you, no matter what position you're sitting in, even if you're sitting in a chair or something, which is fine too. And once it's there, kind of pin down, rotating away. You can kind of look down at that shoulder. You can look up and over, bring that ear to your shoulder. Find those tight spots, and then work yourself back out of it and repeat. Good. Keep breathing here too. Once we finish these, we'll loop back around to one more shoulder drill. Good. Let's do one more on this side. So we'll slide back out of it and into that last stretch. So I don't care what your position is that you're sitting in. It could be in a chair, on the ground, crisscross applesauce, legs straight, whatever's comfortable, whatever makes you feel like you can pin that arm underneath you. Okay? We're going to stay on the ground here for this last shoulder one. One of the biggest things that I see in patients who come into my clinic with shoulder limitations is overhead, right? And a lot of times they'll try to stretch on the wall, do a lot of different things. The problem is we really want you to use your muscles to help with the mobility, right? So this is kind of a pseudo yoga position. We're just going to modify it to not be limited by anything but the shoulder, right? So it's a version of a downward dog, if you guys are familiar, but I'll show you first this way. So a downward dog traditionally is hips in the air, chest back, but for a lot of us, we're going to be limited by our hamstrings before we're limited by our shoulders. So what I want you guys to do is don't worry about bending the knees, just try to get that chest as far back as we can. You'll hold for a second or two and then come back out of it. So let's see you go there. But I don't want the hamstrings to really come into play because I want you to get as far overhead with those shoulders as you can. We're showing off with the hamstrings a little bit now. Good. But for those who have really tight hamstrings and you feel like you could go farther with your shoulders, there's no problem with bending the knees. But our goal, and you can see here, is trying to get that sternum as far back as we can. That's going to get us into a relative overhead position. But because we have our hands on the ground, we have all that really good scapular shoulder blade stability happening at the same time. This is going to give you the best carryover to reaching up in the cabinet, doing overhead press with the dumbbells, barbell, etc. Kind of keep working in and out of this range. 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a little bit of a core warm up too. Really good. Let's just do two more here. And then we'll loop back around to just one last little ankle drill. Good. Awesome, awesome job. So just like last time, I always say the ankles for last. One, no one likes working on the ankles, but the ankles unfortunately need an incredible amount of consistency to get change. So last time, I give you my favorite stretch for the ankle. That'll get you kind of the plantar fascia, the calf, all of that type of stuff. Feel free to keep doing that as well. This one is to help that arch have a little bit more mobility. That will open up your ankle as well. So if you're that person who can't get deep in a squat, some of that, although it may be coming from the hip like we talked about at the beginning, may also be coming from the ankle. We want to create as much space in there as possible. This will help you do it. So you're going to get into a half kneeling position here. And the foot that's in front is the foot that we're working on. So I always say kind of lean forward on that foot. And what we're going to do is we're going to drive the knee forward and in like we're trying to go just inside that big toe until you run out of range, and then coming back out of it. As we come forward and in, that arch on the inside will collapse and lengthen. If you've had a history of plantar fasciitis or other things in there, you may actually perceive a stretch in some of those areas. If you don't, it's fine. We're still getting the joint mobility, which is what we want, but we're trying to get that knee to come as far forward as we can. Some of you guys will be stuck here, and that's okay, but we want to be able to ultimately get that knee past our toe. That's really what you need to be able to get, and not that we're getting this low in our training, but you should be able to get this low if you want to get this low, right? Good, let's keep working here. We're doing a minute each side total, driving that knee just inside that big toe to get that joint excursion that we want from the entire middle of the foot there. You may get a little bit of Achilles stretch as well, especially if you're making sure that heel doesn't ride up. We want to make sure that heel stays flat on the ground as we're working on it. Good. Let's do the last one on this side and then we'll try. If you feel like you need more time, pause the video. Good. And like same thing.
Felt that bone or hip too.
Did you? Yeah, so we might kill a couple birds with one stone here. If you have a deep enough kind of half kneeling position, you'll definitely get this kind of backside hip flexor to stretch out as well. Really good. Just getting that ankle moving. We don't give our ankles enough love. It's kind of one of those forgotten joints. Even when people injure it with like an ankle sprain, it's very much of like, oh, let me just rest and then I'll just go back to activity when it feels better. Rarely do people give the time and attention to the ankle that we do other joints, right? Which is why it's a big pain point or problem area for people when it comes to mobility. Let's do two more on this side after this one. One last one. Really good. Awesome. So that kind of takes you head to toe on another mobility routine. And the goal of these always is to just give you ideas of how to work your body, right? So if you liked things from the previous routine, there's no shame in continuing to do them. And mobility, like I said, is all about consistency. Doing 1,000 reps at one time is not going to give you as good of results as doing 10 reps every single day, right? So the point of Coach Renda here introducing this is to give you guys this habit of recovery and mobility in what you're doing, and hopefully this helps a little bit.
Awesome. That's great. Great job.
Yes, sir. Love it. Love it.
Great
Thanks,
job, guys. Keep up the good work.